I've said it before and I will say it again. As wrestling fans, we just love surprises. It's why the Royal Rumble is everybody's favourite event. You sit there and you get 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you're just desperate for some kind of shock to come out so you can throw your popcorn everywhere and go, I can't believe it's insert your favourite wrestler here. But it's not just the Royal Rumble where this does happen. In fact, professional wrestling is very keen to give you these as much as they can. So yeah, I'm going to travel back in time in my DeLorean and give you a bunch load. My name is Simon Miller, you are watching What Culture Wrestling, and it's time to rack every single wrestling shocking surprise from 1990 all the way up to 2020. Number 31, Vince McMahon crashes the Mr. Olympia in 1990. Because of course he did, Vinnie Mac loves big jacked up dudes, so he went and found the home of big jacked up dudes. Long before the XFL though, Vince McMahon's big idea outside of professional wrestling was to start the WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation, and what better way to market and promote his new gig than going to Mr. Olympia and actually handing out flyers. He promised to make this old event look like an absolute joke. You've got to admire his moxie and his balls. But as we know, it didn't really work out. Number 30, Jake Roberts' snake bites the Macho Man in 91. That is not a euphemism. Even though I was so young when this aired though, I was barely born. What a remarkable piece of business and what a remarkable piece of television entertainment. I mean, seeing Jake Roberts' King Cobra bite the Macho Man Randy Savage and him said it like he was gonna die, well, you couldn't believe it. In real life, Savage was terrified about this as well, which probably explains why he was able to react to it as well as he did. And also, this just opened the door to so many questions, specifically, well, what the hell is Randy gonna do now to get his revenge? Tremendous. Number 29, the SummerSlam you never thought you'd see in 92. Because it was held in the UK. Still can't figure out why the hell they did it to begin with, or why they haven't come back. But it's on these shows, it still makes me happy, it still blows my mind. Ooh-la-lally. Number 28, Hulk Hogan ends the night as champ after WrestleMania 9 in 93. When the Hulkster returned to WWF pay-per-view in 1993, it was just meant to be in a tag match alongside one of his good friends, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. We should have known. And there must have been a reason why he failed to capture tag team gold earlier in the night, and there was. It's because he had got in Vince McMahon's ear and convinced him to walk out after the Bret Hart-Yokozuna World title match, drop the leg on the sumo wrestler, and actually become the world champion. It was silly, it was stupid, and it didn't work because a few months later, Hogan lost it back to Yoko, and then once again, he left. Number 27, Hulk Hogan signs with WCW in 94. And then he was back, and it's hard to explain now because you really had to be living at the time, but when Hulk Hogan was at the peak of his powers in the World Wrestling Federation, nobody would have believed you if you said one day he was going to work for the competition. They would have slapped you around the face. Not only did it happen though, but World Championship Wrestling offered him such a ridiculous deal. Honestly, just go Google it now before you come back to the video. You will not believe your eyes. Number 26, WCW Nitro debuts, and so does Lex Luger in 95. Much like Hogan joining its ranks, having the idea of WWF Raw having serious competition on Monday nights in the 90s seemed redonkulous. And then that's what WCW went and did. Because not only did it fire the first shot in the Monday Night War, but when Lex Luger walked out onto the thing, fans were melting down because this didn't make any sense. We all still thought he was under Vince McMahon employment, but some kind of contract snafu meant that he was able to appear on Raw, and he was able to appear on Nitro, and from that moment on you just knew things weren't going to be the same in Kansas. Number 25, Hulk Hogan goes bad in 1996. The formation of the NWO and Hulk Hogan becoming the biggest villain in the business was everything that Eric Bischoff had been working on for the last couple of years. It added fuel to the fire after he had started this with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and the whole storyline about an invading faction was just great. Taken from a narrative that he had seen from Japan, Bischoff knew exactly what he wanted to do, and I think we can all agree he did it. Number 24, the Montreal Screwjob in 97. I know it doesn't feel this way now because we have discussed it every single day since it happened, but trust me, when the Montreal Screwjob did go down at the Survivor Series in 1997, it sent shockwaves throughout all of wrestling, whether you were a wrestler or you were a fan. You just had to be there. Number 23, The Rock joins the McMahons in 98. And we aped all of that a year later too, except this time it was part of the story. And my word, did WWE pull a banger out here. Because it was brilliant booking as they had gone out of their way to pretend that, oh, The Rock's now gonna go on this huge good guy turn and everybody should love The Rock, until he changed his mind and won the Survivor Series tournament with the help of Vince and Shane McMahon. With Steve Austin being the ultimate hero, we just needed a villain, and the Great One was chosen for that role, and one of the best feuds ever was born. Number 22, Vince Russo joins WCW in 99. Vince Russo was integral to the Attitude Era, or at least that was the rhetoric at the time. So when he did jump ship to WCW, so many people were shouting from the rooftops, "That's it, WWF is done." They were right to a certain extent, but they were pointing at the wrong company. Being paid a small fortune to take on this role, Vince Russo was tasked of bringing the company back to great heights, and instead, he was a huge reason that it tumbled into the ground. Don't come at me, tell me otherwise. He put an old woman on a forklift. That shouldn't even be a sentence. Number 21, Rikishi did it for The Rock in 2000. I appreciated that we tried to go all in with Rikishi in 2000. We just didn't do it very well. Still, WWE had a great track record during this time of their reveals, so everybody was like, well, who the hell is it gonna be that tried to run over Steve Austin? When it turned out to be Rikishi, you just knew this was decided after the fact. He always had a ridiculous reason for it because he did it for The Rock, and The Rock didn't even want this. I don't even know. Number 20, WWE buys WCW in 2001. I mean, what else could possibly be here? It was nuts then, and it was nuts now. It would be like Nintendo buying Sega in the early 90s, or I don't know, Marvel buying DC ever. You just can't get your head around it. It happened though, as ECW fell off the wagon too, and I will never forget that simulcast for as long as I lived. Shane McMahon just on Nitro like it was perfectly normal. Number 19, Eric Bischoff joins WWE in 2002. And let's not get into the invasion and talk about how Eric Bischoff should have been the one leading that charge and how much better that would have made it, and instead talk about that fateful night in 2002 when he did walk out onto Raw and hugged Vince McMahon. They hugged. A couple of years prior, they had been trying to kill each other's company, and now they're embracing like they are in love. And fair play to Eric Bischoff, he had a great on-screen role for years in the WWE, to the point most people remember him more for that than they do in the fact he ran his own deal. Who knows? Number 18, Stone Cold retires in 2003. This story is still crazy. One of the biggest stars of all time rode off into the sunset, and he didn't tell anyone. Furthermore, he's never come back for a match. How did he do it? When he did come head-to-head with The Rock at WrestleMania 19, only a few people knew that he was saying goodbye. And here's a crazy stat for you. Stone Cold Steve Austin has been involved in more WrestleManias as a non-in-ring dude than actually doing in-ring things. What the hell is going on? Number 17, JBL wins the world title in 2004. You needed to be there for this one, but seeing Bradshaw transform into JBL, and they look like completely different people by the way, and generate so much heat that the company went, well, we better make this guy world champion, was just, well, it was unbelievable. And it was so shocking because nobody had seen the APA guy in this role, and yet here he was doing it. I know some of his feuds and some of his matches weren't the best, but when it came to pissing people off, he right at the top of the tree. Number 16, Shawn Michaels turns on Hogan in 2005. With John Cena and Batista as our new faces of WWE, we had to do something big and crazy for SummerSlam, so it was decided that Hulk Hogan should go against Shawn Michaels. We also needed one of these people to be the bad guy, and the Hulkster was never going to do that, so the Heartbreak Kid decided he would, and he booted Hulk right in the face. It was very effective, however, especially when it did come to the match, because Shawn Michaels rolled back the clock a little bit and just hammed it up so much. Now, in terms of being a professional, not so much, but in terms of entertainment, couple of thumbs. Number 15, Bret Hart goes into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2006. Now, I'm not saying it was shocking that the Hitman went into the Hall of Fame. I mean, who is more deserving? But 9 or so years after the Montreal Screwjob, nobody could believe that Bret Hart was actually doing something with the WWE. But there he was. It certainly wasn't all healed because Bret refused to appear at WrestleMania the following night, and we'd have to wait a few more years before we got to that. Number 14, John Cena surrenders the WWE title in 2007. And it was through injury, no less. It was a real body blow for WWE at the time because Cena had become the poster boy for everything. And when we found out he may be out for 12 months, well, there was a lot of panic. The thing is though, number 13, John Cena enters the Royal Rumble at number 30 in 2008. He somehow came back way sooner. Despite actual doctors saying he will be out for a year, John Cena was able to return in less than 3 months, and I will never figure out how he did it. It meant we got one of the best Royal Rumble surprises ever, and the best bit about it, I said it before and I'll say it again, it was in Madison Square Garden, and their initial surprise, they go, oh my gosh, John Cena! And then in around about 9 seconds, they remember they hate him, and they boo that man out the building. It is fabulous. Number 12, CM Punk turns heel in 2009. A tease long in the making, the real joy of seeing CM Punk turn heel on Jeff Hardy was that we were about to get the character we'd first seen in Ring of Honor on a WWE platform. Punk and Hardy were also trading the world title between each other in 2009, and it was this turn that allowed Punk to have an extended world title run. And if you're a fan of the man, you know how important that was. Number 11, Bret Hart returns to the WWE in 2010. Which brings us back to what we were talking about earlier. In the early part of 2010, Vince McMahon, Shawn Michaels, and Bret the Hitman Hart all made up, and Bret walked out onto Raw like it was just nothing. Believe you me, it was something. It was also the start of an angle with Vinnie Mac, which didn't go too well, but we can just do this, whoop-pow, and throw it over there and pretend it never happened. Number 10, everything with CM Punk in 2011. I mean, where the hell do we even start? I mean, the pipe bomb, the world title wins, Money in the Bank, Alberto Del Rio, Kevin Nash. I mean, some of this was great and some of it was not so great, but you were never bored, and it was just filled with shocking surprises. WWE should have doubled down on this, of course, and booked CM Punk like the star we all knew he could be, but they're still good in this, and I choose to remember that. Number 9, Brock Lesnar returns in 2012. This should have always been possible, given that WWE and Bret Hart were able to make up, but after Brock Lesnar had just walked out of the company about 10 years prior, no one actually truly thought it was going to happen, especially because the Beast at one point had sued World Wrestling Entertainment. There was so much love for his return in 2012 though, especially because he returned the night after WrestleMania, and he went straight after John Cena, which left the crowd to cheer him like he was a conquering hero. Number 8, Daniel Bryan beat Cena for the title in 2013. I was there firsthand for this, and I can tell you that it was shocking. As much as we all wanted to believe that Daniel Bryan was going to become the world champion by beating John Cena, you didn't believe it, because WWE had just hurt us too many times. So when Daniel smashed him in the head with a running knee and actually got the 1, 2, 3, oh my gosh, what a celebration we had. Unfortunately, it only lasted about 8 seconds, because we then had another shocking surprise as Randy Orton cashed in his Money in the Bank and won the world title, and we had the start of the Authority. At least it was a fun ride. Number 7, the Undertaker's streak ends in 2014. I mean, if you were only going to pick one shocking moment in recent memory, you'd likely plump for this, because much like when Hulk Hogan became the bad guy, the cool thing about the Undertaker's WrestleMania streak is that it had longevity and it had tenure, and we got to the point where every single fan on the planet went, well, no one's ever going to beat it. Why would that happen? So fans were left stunned when Brock Lesnar actually did it, as proven by that guy in the front row whose eyes were bigger than my bald head. 7 years on, we're still debating, was this a good idea or was this a bad idea? Even real wrestlers can't make up their minds. And that sums it up. Number 6, NXT takes over in 2015. Given that it started as some weird reality TV show, seeing NXT sell out the Brooklyn Center in 2014 for a special, I still don't know how this happened. The whole buzz for the thing was amazing. The crowd had an atmosphere like none other, and if you want to kind of pinpoint when WWE's Women's Revolution actually happened, well, you would pin it right here. If you've never seen this, what are you doing? Go and watch it after this video. Number 5, Goldberg destroys Brock Lesnar in 2016. Man, this absolutely rocked. Making amends for the disaster they had at 2004, once again, no one predicted that Goldberg was going to come back into the WWE, spear and jackhammer Brock Lesnar in less than 2 minutes, and beat him. Was so good. It managed to capture the attention of everybody and led to that awesome 5-minute match they had at WrestleMania. And let me tell you this, I wouldn't change it for the world. And before Chris Jericho assaults Kenny Omega in 2017. How is this 4 years ago? That is terrifying, but never forget, Chris Jericho beating the hell out of Kenny Omega in New Japan planted the seeds for the wrestling world we are now living in, and it's a world that no one ever thought could be real. It also gave us what we thought was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime match between these two. And do not forget, a few months before this, Kevin Owens was beating Jericho on WWE TV. How quickly things can change. Number 3, All In sells out in 2018. You could put Ronda Rousey's debut in here or the rise of Becky Lynch, but the fact that AEW, or the future AEW, was able to sell out an arena with 11,000 people in it, well, it just doesn't compute, especially because for the last 20 years or so, the only North American company to do that was, of course, World Wrestling Entertainment. It also had an amazing atmosphere that's hard to describe and was the building blocks for a serious competitor that was about to be born. Number 2, the launch of AEW in 2019. Which is why this gets in at number 2. I mean, a proper competitive wrestling promotion that had a proper TV deal and financial backing. It was like WCW had rose again. It was all kickstarted by that pay-per-view, and now in 2021, this is just what we expect. It's just the wrestling scene that we know. I think we should all take a step back every now and then and count our lucky chickens. Number 1, WrestleMania 36, live from the Performance Center in 2020. The Edge return at the Rumble comes in a close second, but come on now. WrestleMania, arguably the biggest wrestling event in the world, came to you live from a warehouse with no fans and no noise, and kind of made you feel like you were watching a funeral. They still did a great job, all things considered, but a WWE show with no fans was hard enough to fathom, let alone WrestleMania, and yet this is in the history books now. It's never gonna go away, to the point I bet in 25 years we'll still look back on this and go, well, how the flub did that even work? I mean, it didn't really, just go look at the Thunderdome, but still, plaudits all round and shocks. Now don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know any other shocks and surprises from each of these years. Maybe we've forgotten one, then like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com, read yourself some articles, follow What Culture on Twitter, What Culture WWE, and other social media networks, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name's Simon for What Culture, thanks for watching me as always. I'll see you on the next one.